Welcome to the 5th edition of the Friday Roundup. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of gold in your investment portfolio, reverse mortgages, and all the benefits of breastfeeding.
You're listening to ChooseFI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. ChooseFI, your home for financial independence online.
April Fools, guys. Welcome to spring.
Jonathan couldn't resist.
Yeah.
He's a big April Fool's fan, so we had to toss that in there.
Yeah, and I actually have, my wife is due here, and I had to go to a breastfeeding class last night, so if I have to deal with it, so do y'all.
Yeah, man, so you're a couple weeks away from the due date. Congratulations. It must be getting pretty exciting over there.
We are ready, man. That nursery is good to go. If I have to assemble one more thing, I'm not going to have any hair left. And I had a solid head of hair. It's been fun though. It's super exciting. The room's painted. The nursery stuff's assembled. My wife did tell me that the crib was too low and that she's demanding that I raise it. So I may have one more assignment coming my way. But yeah, I think the bags are packed. We're just in go mode. So when it's here, and we're ready for it.
Nice. Very, very cool. Yeah, as you know, I have two kids. They're not. It's funny in my head that I always want to say young kids, but you know, my youngest is almost 5 now. It's amazing how the time flies by. So you know, definitely, obviously, it's hard those first couple of weeks when you know they send you home with this child and you have no idea what you're doing. But
you're gonna have to start worrying about dating soon.
Just try to enjoy it. What's that?
You're gonna have to start worrying about dating soon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, geez. Don't start.
I don't have any hacks for you with that one, man. I got absolutely nothing. Good luck.
Yeah. We're not looking forward to that, but hopefully we got a couple years, so we'll see.
All right. Well, yeah, so life's good, man. April is going to be an awesome month. It's going to be a transformative month for me in many, many ways. So we're super excited about it. But this past Monday, we dropped we dipped our first toe into the real estate world with Chad Carson, and it was an awesome episode, and it was on house hacking. So if y'all haven't listened to it yet, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, that is one to check out. I mean, there's different like pillars in the FI community that we rely on. We always talk about index investing, frugal living as a vehicle to get to FI, and Brad and I are big fans of travel rewards, using that as a way to decrease expenses, and just doing everything a little bit smarter. We've started the conversation about college hacking, how to, get that degree without going 6 figures in debt. And this particular conversation is another pillar that so many people that have achieved financial independence have used. And it's probably one of the scariest ones, because there's so many unknowns about it. And one of the things that Brad and I have really committed ourselves to is to try to simplify this just a little bit. But there's someone out there that I think that has already done that, extremely well. And all we really have to do is just point you to him. And that's Chad Carson. And his website at coachcarson.com is absolutely fantastic. And he is just as good on a podcast as he is with his own writing. Extremely relatable, extremely understandable. It sees it for you, gives you the 101, the high level and the low level picture. And I feel like if you spend enough time with him and with his content, you're going to be able to go and take action with that. I know that's how I felt after finishing that conversation.
Yeah, same here for sure. I thought, he was the perfect co-host. And, that's how we like to view our quote unquote guests as co-hosts.
Yeah.
This is a conversation. And yeah, he just did a really wonderful job. He's just, I've had the good fortune of meeting him, and just a really wonderful guy. I mean, honestly, he's just a down to earth guy. Like, it's funny because I didn't know he was a big time D1 Clemson football player, like until I read the article after he was on the Mad Finds podcast. There was an article about he was up, I think, for like the Butkus Award as like the nation's best linebacker. Like, I mean, he was like a fantastic, D1 college football player. And like, I mean, not to overly stereotype, but like you would think someone like that would, even years later would, it's in some way, shape or form, show that, maybe pompous or something, but like I would have never guessed in a million years. I mean, and again, that's kind of silly, and I don't generally like to stereotype, but like, I mean, geez, the most unassuming guy, just down to earth. And one of his quotes was, keep it super simple and try to do the fundamentals well. And he said that he kind of learned that from football, actually, and that's just such a great life lesson, not just a real estate lesson or a financial independence or personal finance lesson, but just a life lesson. Keep it simple. Life does not have to be complicated. And, if you do those fundamentals well and you show up day after day and put the hard work in, good things are going to happen. It might not be, everybody looks for this instant gratification in life. And, the good things might not happen. If you want to start working out and have, six-pack abs or something ridiculous like that, like it's not going to happen in a week. I can bet you that it's probably going to happen in 3 to 5 years, or maybe less if you really dedicate yourself. But if you think it's going to happen in a week or two and you get frustrated and give up, well, I mean, you were always bound to fail. And that's, a silly example, obviously, but I mean, it's just like, it's a microcosm for life is, you do the fundamentals well, you show up week after week, month after month. And I mean, good things are going to happen to you. And, what Chad said about real estate, which I think is also very relatable, is do the extra effort that the other guy is not doing. I mean, he's literally out there walking neighborhoods on a Saturday morning with his kids for hours upon hours, just in the off chance of just meeting somebody, having a conversation, and, not doing it in a skeevy or contrived manner, but just being like just a genuinely nice person and just trying to learn about a community. Like, to me, that was like such an eye-opening comment by him that like, most people, right, Jonathan, like they're not going to go out and spend 5 hours on a Saturday week after week to learn things about different communities. They're just not.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to think about with each podcast that we're doing, especially the ones that are just, it's not philosophy, but it's like action driven, like do these 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. Who is this perfect for? And with this particular one, and I'm not talking about real estate in general, I'm talking specifically about house hacking. There's something here, man. I mean, there's like in our community where you are a DIY person, you're learning these new skills and you're figuring out how to incorporate it in your life. And maybe you're in this kind of range where you're 18 to 30, somewhere in that range, or maybe you have a kid and that's going to college, something like that. Like, I told both my brothers, you have to go read this article. You have to listen to this podcast. I have another friend, that's single and kind of in this transition phase. And I said, starting to look for renting a new home or purchasing a new home. This is the sort of thing that can change your entire financial future. It completely can change the trajectory of where you're going. And if you're starting from scratch, totally starting from scratch, and you're open to anything and you're just looking for a lever that you can pull to change your financial dynamic, this is it, man. This has got to be it.
Yeah, without question. And it's another kind of unconventional choice, which I think is kind of what I like to view FI as. It's not difficult choices. It's not like extreme choices. Nothing that we've talked about in our 20 plus episodes now is, in my opinion, is extreme. I just don't view it that way. It's just thinking about a problem differently, thinking about the world a little bit differently. And, if you saw a picture of Chad's first house hack, which we'll link up in the show notes, and it'll be ChooseFI.com/FR005. But yeah, we'll link to his house hacking article. That house was hideous. Honestly, most people would look at it and run as far and as fast as they possibly could. But Chad saw gold there, and that first house hack propelled him to, he now has 90 rentals.
Which is that's crazy.
It's amazing, right? Like, it's
that is large scale, man.
Yeah, no, that is no joke. He's built himself, quite the empire. And it starts with one thing. It starts with one unconventional choice, right? And that's how I view FI. it's just, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but just thinking a little bit differently. And that's something I want to talk to you about later. Since you posed a difficult question to me last time on the paying off the mortgages. I'd love to hear, like, if someone came to you and said, hey, Jonathan, describe what is financial independence. How would you describe it for me? What are the pillars? How would you describe that? And we could talk about that now, or we could, punt that for later in the episode. But to me, it's making a couple of right choices. And where you live and your housing is certainly one of them. Your car is another. Your cell phone, not spending, as minuscule as that sounds, like not spending $150 a month, but spending 20 on Project Fi or Republic Wireless, and food, and not wasting tons of money going out to eat.
Listen to what you've just said, and then think about the shows that we've done. Like, that's what we've been unpacking. I'm literally answering that every single week with you, with how we're going through each individual lever that we've pulled, and ones that we want to pull, and ones that we're working towards. I mean, when we talk about the journey, I love our logo, man. I've loved it from like the first conception, and then it kind of kept getting better and better and better. But you're on this journey, and you got to take a first step and then another. And we're literally walking through every single lever that we can think of to get there, and then get there faster. I mean, this is what it looks like when you go and you talk to people at these different camps that have achieved it. This is what they did. Now, did they do everything that we're talking about? No, probably not. But in one shape or form, these are the levers that they pulled. And when you get enough of them down, the journey writes itself. You get there.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And yeah, I love that logo as well, because it is that choice. It's making a series of little choices, but these little choices add up, over time. They really do. And, it's funny because that's been on my mind since this past weekend. We were hanging out with some of our friends at, one of the parks here in Richmond, and just walking around, enjoying the day. And, somehow the topic of this new podcast came up. And, this friend of mine is very financially astute, and I knew it would be a something that he was actually interested in, and he was asking questions, and I was really trying to unpack it. And when it comes to the question of how are you saving 50 to 70% of your income, it's hard. Like, it's funny because I was trying to answer it, and I was just coming back to these couple of things, but it's hard to convey that without like paper and pencil, of saying like, just these couple little choices, and maybe, 5 to 10 of these little choices really do make the difference between saving 5 to 10% of your income and 50 to 70%,
Yeah.
but it, like, I almost found myself stumbling and being like, wow, am I a bozo, like not being able to explain this properly when I'm here, on a podcast to many, many thousands of people, multiple times a week, trying to convey this. But it's hard to unpack to someone who has no concept of it,
because you're trying to basically unpack what you're trying to do there is even beyond the scope of what we're doing here, because you're trying to then give them all the levers in a 5-minute elevator speech,
right,
which is impossible. It's impossible, and there's not even a single article can really do that. You would check out after the first 5,000 words. It's a book. But we're giving you an audiobook, but we're giving you a live version of the audiobook, and we're living it out in front of you. And yeah, it would be difficult to show all the things that just everyday, normal Americans do that's just stupid with money, right? And then you just make a few smart decisions. And what are those smart decisions? Well, it might be hard for me to piece it together to you in 45 seconds, but I can unpack it one at a time, and I can create a big picture and a little picture, and we can go into depth onto each one of these. And yeah, can you imagine a scenario though where you're 25 years old and your first home, your rent is either free, or maybe you're only paying $200 a month, and everybody else is paying down your mortgage for you, and you're getting all this experience as a landlord, and for 10 years of your life or 5 years of your life, you have no mortgage payments going out the door, essentially. And then at the end of that, because of all the renovations and things that you've put in, you're either able to sell it for profit and keep all that money tax-free, or you're able to get out of the unit that you were renting, and now you're bringing an extra $500 or $600 a month. And when you move into your next place, you've basically created $600 to $1,000 a month or more in just income for life. It's there for perpetuity. I mean, that is a game changer, but that's a single game changer. And you don't need to necessarily do that one, but you can pick, you can pick and choose these, and you can make your own picture. And I just think that's the power of the framework that we're trying to create, the story that we're trying to create. You don't have to do all of these different things, But this is viable, this is totally viable. Now, is Brad going to take his family, of four and get them to go move into a fourplex and start from scratch and do all these? Well, I would say probably not. That's not going to be the lever he chooses to pull. But would I encourage everybody I know, including my siblings, as they're single, they're just starting out, they're just now looking into getting their first home, and their options are either picking, the cookie cutter condo with the homeowners association fees, or the second option is to find a triplex, duplex, or quad and do something like this. Do you realize the difference in their 20 or 30 year outlook with that one choice? I mean, it's just, there's no comparison, right?
No, it's the biggest game changer possible for someone in that boat. There's no question about it. I mean, it would be remarkable, right? Because that is the biggest line item in people's budget is housing. And yeah, I mean, if you could cut that down to essentially nothing in your early 20s, I mean, that's a true multi-million-dollar game changer over a 40-year life, investing life. I mean, it is as big a game changer as you can come up with. And it's funny because I was having that conversation with my Laura precisely this morning, actually, before we started recording. Is she listened to the episode yesterday, and she was like, this wouldn't really work for us, but that would have been something cool to think about, before we had kids. And I think maybe we're a little too conservative or snobby or something. I don't think of myself as a snob by any means, but, about like the precise area we live in and the school district we live in and such. And, there are people in the FI community like Justin from Root of Good, who I think in his article, he said, they went out of their way to not pick the top school district in the area. And that was something we probably should have asked him about, because I was curious about it. But when we get him on a second time, maybe we can. But if we were a little more open about that, which we probably should be, we could do this, or we could live in a much lower cost of living area, even within the Richmond area. And it's something that I think maybe we didn't make that choice in our 20s, but because honestly, we weren't aware of it. I didn't know anything about this house hacking, but gosh, if I could go back, it would be such a cool thing to do. And I mean, to pay absolutely nothing on your mortgage every month, or your rent is, I mean, again, it's just a game changer. And
it also strikes me that this is another pillar for second generation fire. Me and you didn't know any of this stuff when we were in our teens and our 20s. And also we were starting from scratch or in debt when we were in our 18s or 20s. But if you get yourself into a position where not only are you not in debt, but you have a 6-figure or 6 or 7-figure portfolio, and now your kids are coming up through the pipeline. And I know there's some very mixed feelings about setting your kids up or leaving them in inheritance. And I'm not telling you what you have to do there. But even for the people that are talking about not leaving their kids in inheritance, I would imagine that they will be imparting to them these ideas to help them get started and make these financial choices. And, if my son is 17, 18, 20, we're starting to think about what's that first home going to look like. And we're thinking, well, you could either stay at home to save money, right? Or, you're a mature person that's really demonstrated that you've figured a lot of this stuff out. Maybe we start looking into how we can set you up with your own house hack. And now I get to kind of live it through you to some degree and help coach you through this process and get you set up with that first home. And maybe that single decision is enough for you to just, race toward the FI finish line on your own without needing any of the portfolio that the first generation built. I can just see that. I think that conversation, whatever it ends up looking like, I have no idea what that conversation is going to look like. I mean, I'm not even there yet at the door, but I'm about to, it's going to be a reality soon. So the next, 20 years of my life, in some shape or form, are we thinking, what is that kind of conversation going to look like with my son? How am I going to tee him up for that? And I guarantee you house hacking will be on my radar as, he approaches his 20s. It will be. There's no way for me to avoid it. It takes up a solid portion of my free thoughts now when it comes to how can you just supercharge the path to FI.
Yeah, I mean, that would help him with a lot of maturity. I mean, literally being a landlord, right? I mean, he'd be around his tenants. He would put some sweat equity into fixing the place up. I mean, that's like that gives a lot of life lessons as well, not only on the financial side, but I know just kind of pivoting to like my own life and like the couple decisions that we made that really helped us on the path to FI are both real estate related, actually. And you know, I know you kind of actually mentioned this as the other option, but you know, I credit my parents letting me live at home after college for free as one of like the real game changers in my financial life. I mean, I lived at home, was working, you know, for one of the big accounting firms on Long Island. I lived at home for 2.5 years. And I mean, I was able to essentially save just about every single dollar I made and just stock away, you know, I forget the exact number, but it was, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, certainly. And, you know, that helped me then, you know, propel my entire financial life. I mean, if I was out on my own, you know, in a $1,000+ you know, apartment, then, I mean, just simply would not have had that money. And, you know, that was a decision that a lot of my friends made to live on their own and, you know, be these mature adults and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, this is such a game changer. And I'm very happy with my 22-year-old self that I had the presence of mind to do that, to live at home.
That's awesome. I would totally be open to that, you know, because in our community or in our FIRE, you know, mentality, there's, you know, we don't think about boomerang children, right? Where this idea where you go out, you get your $60,000 education, all financed in loans, and then you can't find a job. And so, you know, you got nothing. So you come back to the house and there's no real plan. There's this indecision. I think with what you're talking about, coming back to home is a lever that you can then pull again to supercharge it. I mean, that's why the second generation FIRE, that's the conversation, man. That's gotta be it. I mean, what does it look like when the silver spoon becomes unnecessary? And instead of that, you're just raising these kids that have all this knowledge that you didn't figure out until your late 30s and 40s. And you figured it out early compared to your peers, right? But that's when you figured it out. But now you're raising them in a way that shows them what that other picture looks like. And you're helping them make those decisions or choose those line items that can just have such impact on their financial future at a younger age. I hope that I'm not just talking out there and nothing's going to happen with this. I hope that is actually something that I can do. It certainly helps when we grow this community. We make this idea more mainstream because you certainly are fighting the tide of, you know, materialism and marketing that's being pumped at you from every single media outlet that's out there.
Yeah, and again, it's about thinking a little differently. Like you know, you mentioned the boomerang kids, and you know, a lot of people in popular culture think, you know, that's such a negative thing, and you know, kids are just being lazy, and you know, all this like kids these days, you know, kind of nonsense. But like, it's just reframing it. If you look at that, like you said, as a lever to pull to help your kids succeed in life, then I mean, they can be financially responsible and living at home. They don't need to be on their own paying bills. I mean, if my kids can show me they're at home and they're saving, doing all the right things and saving money, and you know, that's a huge win for me. I don't need them to come back from college, and you know, I'd love them to be here. You know, I mean, that would be fantastic. And you know, just I know I alluded to this in a prior podcast. Is like my brother was the perfect example of, you know, somebody that could be viewed as like, you know, a quote unquote negative boomerang kid, you know, after he graduated college. I mean, he went to Tufts University, which is like a top, you know, 25 school in the country. He was an honors graduate, came home and was waiting tables for a couple of years because, you know, he didn't have a direction then. But, you know, most people would look at that as a negative, but he was living at home, not paying anything in expense at that point. And while, he was waiting tables, he was saving thousands upon thousands of dollars and ultimately tens of thousands of dollars. And, you know, that was a game changer for him. So, you know, while again, that could be looked at as a negative thing, he turned it into a big positive, and that helped him springboard himself into a very successful life, and, you know, enabled him to buy a house when he moved down here to Richmond. And, you know, it's just all these positive things happened. And, you know, he now has a career and he's, you know, set, and, you know, that was just a little blip, but it wasn't a negative again, because he was smart, you know, and like I said in the other podcast, whereas there are all of these executives who are driving around in BMWs and in their McMansions and not saving money, those people are viewed as successes in life, which to me is just such a silly thing. Like, if you're not saving money, in my opinion, like, you're really not that successful, especially when you have a decent income. It's just like, that's just not someone I look at as a success. It really isn't.
Yeah. No, totally valid points. And I love hearing your perspective on it. Okay, so like I told y'all, we kind of like to open up these doors for conversation, and then we never just stop and move on, especially when we feel like we haven't reached the end. And how could you ever possibly reach the end? Now, if you want more content on real estate, go to coachcarson.com, sign up for his email list. We've told you before how fantastic it is. You will not regret it. It's a phenomenal email list. Brad and I are not done with real estate. We are going to be tiptoeing into this. We realize how powerful of a lever real estate is as you pursue financial independence. I think one of the things that we believe in a similar manner to Chad is that it is a vehicle to get us to financial independence. We're not interested in owning the Empire State Building. We're not trying to get Trump Towers. What we are trying to do is we're trying to explore all the different levers that you can pull to hit financial independence for your family. And so one of the things that we've decided to do is actually start building a real estate team. And we've kind of got an outlay of what that's going to look like. And we're going to start doing this as we approach 2018 and 2019, really get that up and rolling. And we're going to be bringing people on to help coach us through that process. Specifically, Coach Carson has agreed to come back, and kind of help mentor us through this process. He's already gone to the end and figured out, and we think there's real value in showing you what it looks like in the process. And so, we're talking a little bit of everything, a little bit of flipping, a little bit of passive income just through rental properties. We're going to kind of try to explore it all and see how it fits, our own lives and what we want to do. And we're going to get into it slowly. And our idea is start from scratch, document it as we go, show you what we're doing, show you where we do it wrong and where we do it right. Get people to come in that can mentor us through the process and show us how to, speed up the learning curve. And everything we're doing, we're sharing with you so you can kind of live it with us. And also, if you're doing it along with us, because one of the things that you tell us over and over again, and we love it. This is the perfect feedback. I've heard other people talking about it, but with the way y'all present it, I'm actually able to take action. And I did this, this, and this. That is the best emails that we get. Really, those are the ones I show to my wife every time and let her read that because it adds value to my day. But that's what we want to keep doing. So we're going to go out and do X, Y, and Z in real estate, and then we're going to present it to you. And then if we fail on something, we're going to go out and find someone and have them help us figure out why and how we can do it better, that sort of thing. So this is all coming. When you sign up for our email list and you tell us you're specifically interested in real estate information, I realize that you signed up for that maybe already and haven't gotten an email about it. It's because that's something that's coming, but we're still figuring out what that structure looks like and how to best present it. So that's going to be probably more towards the end of 2017. But if you indicated that's something you're interested in, we got you. And we'll be keeping you in the loop on that, as well as obviously on the podcast as we go forward. So we actually have some other guests that have kind of are in our radar that are telling us they would like to come on and present some content in this space as well. So, this is not going to become a pure real estate show, but we do obviously recognize what a powerful lever it is. So we are going to be including that, just like we do many of the other contents. It'll be on a somewhat recurring basis over the next several years. And I know I'm excited about that. How about you, Brad?
Yeah, without question. It's something that, again, I've mentioned a couple of times. I know very little about real estate investing, but it's something that I'm open to. To be perfectly honest, it's something that scares me a good bit.
Yeah, it scares me too. But we want to do it the right way. I think we can. If we instead of it just being your single perspective, and you make the decision and you're the only one that can be held accountable for it, And so when you're right, you're right. But when you're wrong, you have no one else to bounce it off of. I'm hoping that if we build this team out and we get these mentors to coach us through it, we can do it and maximize the reward and minimize the risk, or at least make it a reasonable amount of risk, if that makes sense. So I'm excited to be doing it with you because I think that you are way more skeptical about deals in general than I am. And I think that we'll make a good balance between being very gung-ho and very number oriented. So hopefully we'll be able to nip the analysis paralysis in the bud with the two of us working on it.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Okay, so this brings me to one other quick thing, and this is just how ChooseFI works, and our audience, y'all need to be aware of this so that you can participate. We know that y'all are interested in making this a community. That's what we want. We've said that from the beginning. And one of the things that we have been saying is that we want and need your input. And one of the things that we've been teasing is that at a certain point, we're going to get to the place where you are going to be able to actually leave us a voicemail feedback, and it'll get played on the show. Especially if it adds to the content that we're trying to present. So there's a couple things to that. One, is that right now we have 45 written reviews on iTunes. We told you, and this is from the very beginning, once we get to 50 written reviews, the voicemail feature is getting added to the webpage. So you're right there at the door. If you've been wanting to do it but haven't quite pulled the trigger, this is your week. Go pull the trigger. Leave us a written review on iTunes. Go to choosefi.com/iTunes. It'll take you straight to our iTunes page. Alternatively, you can just go to iTunes and search for ChooseFI, one word, and then just go to reviews. And then just write us a short, review. Obviously, that is the number one way that you can help us right now. We're not asking you to send us donations. We're not asking you to listen to our sponsors at this point, but right now, this is just the number one way that you can say thank you for putting this content together. But on top of that, this is what we've been telling you. We want to get your input on the show. We know, frankly, it scares me sometimes how smart our audience is, because you send me emails and I have to spend time researching it because I'm like, they are ahead of me in many cases. And I want to make sure that I'm adding value to the content that you already have locked down. And so Brad and I, we take what we're saying on the show very seriously. Well, not seriously as in we hold ourselves up, but seriously as in we want to present good, accurate information to the best of our abilities. And so y'all are really, really smart, and we've obviously picked up on that. And we look forward to getting your input on the show. We know it adds value. So please consider going onto iTunes, leaving us a written review, and we would love to add that voicemail feature. And here's how it'll work. Once it's set up, if you send us a written comment on a Monday after the show drops immediately, you need to send it to us that Monday, or you leave us a voicemail that Monday. If you get it to us the same day the Monday episode drops, we record this Tuesday morning. This is being recorded Tuesday in the morning. So you got to get it to us on Monday. But if you do that anytime on Monday, there is a solid chance that your comment or message is going to be included on that Friday episode. And how much value does that add to our community when they have these different perspectives and feedbacks and case studies, all these other things? So I hope that y'all get as excited about that idea of crowdsourcing the show as Brad and I do, but we need your help with that. We need you to help first by giving us the written review, and second by leaving us that feedback on Monday, and it'll be a big deal. So let me just go ahead and segue into this. This last week, we did get a significant number of iTunes reviews, and I'm just going to read just a couple of them. Ken907 says, "This is my favorite podcast for learning about frugal living, intentional spending, smart investing, and travel hacking. Brad and Jonathan have really nailed it. I look forward to learning something new every episode. Keep it up." And Stegan says, "This podcast delivers great content from all around the FI community. One great thing about this show is the challenges that both guys go through in their own journey and the thoughts behind their decisions. ChooseFI doesn't present only one way to accomplish your goals, but how so many others are doing it their way, including listener feedback." Great stuff, guys.
All right. The Book Babe says, "I love this podcast. Jonathan and Brad are so authentic, humble, and helpful. There's not a lot of judgment on this podcast, just steps that can help you get closer to FI. I love that they produce 2 podcasts a week too. This podcast can help keep you on track." And Jeff says, "I'm new to the FIRE world, but read the classic Your Money or Your Life years ago and had no idea that those ideas were taken up by a whole host of great financial minds and people looking to push towards financial independence. The ChooseFI show is easily the best out there for these concepts, and I've already made significant changes to my strategies, including fully funding our tax-deferred savings and moving my IRA funds to Vanguard. More than that, Brad and Jonathan are very personable and are great at conveying these concepts in a user-friendly and congenial manner. I'm always happy to see their new podcasts come up in my feed and look forward to many more." Yeah, that's really great feedback. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. And to hear that people are taking action it's just the most gratifying thing for Jonathan and I. So thank you very much.
And FIRE is catching on, man. I mean, this month, we're probably going to hit or come close to hit 50,000 downloads. So essentially in our 3rd month of recording, we're about to hit 50,000 downloads in almost, I don't know how many countries there are in the world, so I'm not even going to ask you. I'm going to let you slide and pretend that you do know. But I mean, literally over 80 countries, this podcast is being listened to. And so I hope that we're able to convey some knowledge that is not just American centric. I know a lot of the core stuff that we talk about, really everybody should be able to apply. And I know obviously with some of the Vanguard stuff, that is kind of America centric, but hopefully you will be able to grab what the piece of that you can use, in your particular country. And as we come up with different resources for different places, we'll try to share those with you as best you can. I think it will help as this becomes community centered, because obviously, as someone that lives in Virginia, I don't spend a lot of time studying Canadian investment techniques, and I'm sorry, but I would love to obviously be able to provide you all a place that you can find information that you'd find helpful. And I think a lot of the core of this show, including even index investing, should be very, very helpful for you. So Brad and I very, very much want to be open to feedback and even, criticism when there is some, and we try to analyze it and see, is that valid? Is there something that maybe we didn't do right or that we should do better? I don't really have an ego. I'm very proud of what we're producing here, but I'm okay to be wrong. And then I don't mind changing my opinion on something if we see something that we need to change. But just to give, I guess, a shout out, I became aware that we'd been mentioned on the internet on libertarian investments. So I guess give you a shout out here. He says, I recently listened to a podcast episode of Radical Personal Finance. In this episode, there were two guests talking about financial independence. The two guests have their own podcast called ChooseFI. One of the guests was talking about how he paid down a big student debt in the six figures and casually acknowledged that his higher than average income helped. Luckily, the host of the show, Joshua, stopped him and basically said that having a higher income is a big piece of the puzzle in paying down debt and or achieving financial independence. It's something that some may have taken for granted. In the podcast episode I referenced above, there was another throwaway line by the guest. He said there are better ways to earn a six-figure income without going into debt. I wish the host had asked him his thoughts on this. It's interesting to get someone's take on how to earn a six-figure income without college, considering that the large majority of people are not earning this much. So I think this kind of is a nice conversation. I'm trying to decide, is he just wrong? Is that what we said? I didn't go back and re-listen to the episode again. I know it was kind of on the fly, but I think that there's a couple things there that I just wanted to touch on. One was the first part about how having a higher than average income helped pay down big student debt. Totally true. Totally true. And hopefully you did not go into six figures of student loan debt to get a job that paid, $40,000 a year. I kind of knew the math, before I went into my degree. I knew that I was going to end up with six figures in debt, and I knew that I would earn a six-figure income. Having said that, there are many of my peers that graduated the exact same time as me that have, $200,000+ in student loan debt, 5 years out of school. And so, my choice was, absolutely play the defense first, crush my expenses, send out every extra dollar to student loans. And I don't want to, marginalize that. It was hard. It was not fun. And I'm almost done. And so I think probably I always have a more optimistic spin, and it's more, take the circumstances that you've been handed and then figure out how to optimize them. And, if you do that, then ultimately down the road, you're going to win. So I don't have a whole lot more to add on to that. Yeah, obviously it's easier to pay down debt if you have a big income. So, yeah, you're right about that. The other one was, he says, I wish he talks about how we had mentioned that there are better ways to earn a six-figure income without going into debt. I wish the host had asked him his thoughts on this. It's interesting to get someone's take on how to earn a six-figure income without college, considering that the large majority of people are not earning this much. So this one, I think there's more to actually talk about. I think what y'all have seen Brad and I discuss over the last 20 minutes, over the last 19 episodes, is just hammering all these levers that you can pull to first crush your expenses. But then now we're getting into the cool, really cool stuff, how to play offense, how to increase your income. And so there's a couple things that come to mind. You don't necessarily need to have one person that earns figures. You could just have two people that earn 50,000, a married couple, each making 50,000. There's $100,000 a year. I think it works, right? I mean, I don't think that making $100,000 between two people is something that's that complicated. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but just at the most basic level, that's a reasonable situation. Am I right, Brad?
Yeah, I think without a doubt. I mean, obviously there are many millions of people that aren't making $50,000 salaries each, but I think that is at least reasonable for, a middle class family to have, let's just say on average, two $50,000 a year salaries. I don't think that's snobbish of us or, extraordinary. So, obviously it's harder to get to FI with a low income, an extraordinarily low income. But, like Jonathan said, that's not unrealistic. And I think this is a very, very valid comment. And, I love being challenged by this kind of stuff. And, just one thing that stuck out to me was, they said it is interesting to get someone's take on how to earn a six-figure income without college. And I don't think that's what Jonathan was saying at all. I think he was saying without going into $168,000 worth of debt. And I think that's an important distinction. Jonathan obviously knew he was going to have a pretty high salary. And, he at that point made the decision that it was worth it to go into that debt. And, he might redo the decision today if with what he knows now. But regardless, it's, the without college is not what we were saying at all. It's, can you take the tools that you learn from, Justin from Root of Good, or what Sun Wu is going to put together, and Edmund T is going to put together on how to hack college and how to do it and come out without a significant amount of debt.
Yeah.
Are there professions where you can get six figures without needing a doctorate? Accounting jumps out at me. I was an accountant. Now I only needed a 4-year degree. I think now you technically need a master's to get a CPA. Which is sad that I don't know that precisely, but but you can do that in 4 years potentially. There's some programs that allow you to do that, or certainly 5, and that's not unrealistic to get a CPA. Engineers, there are many people coming out with engineering degrees that can get significant incomes. So are there ways to do this a little bit smarter than Jonathan's $168,000 worth of debt? Yeah, I mean, I think that's what Jonathan was saying, and what's funny is actually with this comment is it actually brought to mind that Radical Personal Finance episode, and this comment kind of put it all on Jonathan, but I think part of the comment was actually from me saying, my wife and I were both CPAs, and Joshua Sheets kind of came back and said, well, isn't it easier with 2 significant incomes? And this kind of talks or touches back on unconventional choices, which is, my wife Laura has been a stay-at-home mom for the last 9 years, and that was an intentional decision that we made that really changed our entire lives. Honestly, like I've mentioned a couple of times, we're from Long Island, New York, and when we got married in 2005, we said to ourselves, like, we cannot live the life that we want to live on Long Island, and we just can't, and it would require us to work full-time jobs forever, to afford a shack of a starter home in a, somewhat decent town for, $400,000 plus with $12,000 a year taxes on those houses. I mean, that's the norm for what my friends are paying up there. And, that was just not something that appealed to us at all. And, we made the unconventional choice of moving within 2 getting married and picking up our entire lives and moving 400 miles south to Richmond, Virginia, where, we, albeit bought a nice house, a nice 4-bedroom house in a very good part of town, but, we went out of our way to make the decision to buy a house that we could afford on just my salary, because we were pretty darn certain that Laura was going to stop working and stay at home with our kids. And I mean, that was a decision we made years in advance. And, again, that's an unconventional choice. And that was not an easy choice by any means. That was a hard choice, but it set us up for this easy life. And, that comes back to that quote I heard on a Tim Ferriss podcast, which is, hard choices, easy life, easy choices, hard life. And, the easy choice would have been to stay on Long Island with our family and our friends. And, we would have struggled forever. We would have not been able to reach FI, not even close. And, we made the hard choice to uproot our entire lives and come down here, but forecasting years in advance of what we could do with, just one salary and still live comfortably. So, I was pretty imprecise on that Radical Personal Finance and made it, implied that, Laura and I were both, middle manager type CPAs at big companies and made a hefty income. And that's just simply not been the case. We've been living on one income for the last 9 years and have still reached FI on, nowhere near a huge income by any means. So, I definitely, this provided me a really great opportunity to clarify that and let the audience know that sometimes it does require unconventional choices. And that was not an easy thing for us, but it's been really the best choice we could have ever made.
And also, just for the sake of plugging something, but I think it kind of goes to this as well. If you go to our homepage, which, by the way, by the time you see this, the homepage will be completely different than it is, was been a week ago. I've done a total redesign on it. The idea was to really allow y'all to get deeper into the content and help you just, see all the different things that we're putting together. And I think it came out really, really well. But one of the things that is on there and has always been on there is our free ebook, The Blueprint to Financial Independence. And it unpacks this idea how with the next generation, second generation fire, if you implement the different hacks that we've been talking about and put them into this one single story, you could, if you start early enough, so second generation fire, you can be financially independent by the age of 30 without ever making a six-figure income. Frankly, without ever making more than 35 or 40 grand a year. It's just completely doable. And so it's not to tell you that that's what you have to do, or that if you miss that window, you can't achieve financial independence. That's not the point, but it's to illustrate some of these levers, how they go together, and how if you implement them all for that second generation fire, they're not going to need to earn even $60,000 a year. It's not going to be necessary. So I don't know. I really liked putting that book together. It was just kind of a compilation of thoughts that I had and kind of different things that I'm going to be thinking about as I raise my son. So I hope that y'all enjoy that. Just take a look at it. It's only 9 or 10 pages, so it's just kind of a quick read, but I think you'll like that. We also got a message from Ken. And Ken says, "Hi, I recently discovered the financial independence movement and it's been life-changing. I've always been relatively frugal, but by making some of the simple changes outlined by you and your guest, I've been able to optimize taxes, investing, travel, and frugal living. These things add up to making FI feel like an impending reality. Thank you." And then Ken had some suggestions for a future podcast. He said, let's talk about libraries. And he said some of his favorite library benefits include digital ebooks on Hoopla and Overdrive. He said this is a great way to get ebooks on your phone or Kindle. Travel guidebooks and cookbooks. He used to always buy these and now they never do. Tax preparation guidance, museum passes, kids program, meeting space and conferences. Ken, I tell you what, if you want to and you feel open to it, if you want to write that up into an article, just kind of unpack those in detail, some of the benefits, I would love to post that in an article on ChooseFI to really, because I know how many people in the financial independence space love and feel passionate about libraries. I would love, since it sounds like you've really taken advantage of that, just put that together in an article and send it our way. I'd love to feature that on ChooseFI. That sounds really cool. And Ken also said, I've heard you guys throw around the 10-year figure a lot when talking about the time it takes to reach FI. Well, I think this may be attainable for many of your listeners. It may be unrealistic for those with lower incomes. From reading a number of blogs, it seems like the magic number for comfortable and frugal living is between 30 to 40K per year. Based on the 4% rule, that means reaching a net worth of between $750,000 to $1 million. To reach this goal in 10 years, you need an after-tax income of between $90,000 and $120,000, assuming a 5% annual rate of return. While this income may or may not be typical among your listeners, it's certainly above the median income for the U.S. I don't mind hearing the 10-year figure mentioned, but it would be nice to have it in context of earned income. Even an income of $60,000 could lead to a working career of 20 to 25 years, which is way shorter than the standard. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, and that's a great comment and great feedback, certainly. And we're kind of focusing here on criticism because I think it challenges us. And this is criticism, quote unquote, because obviously Ken's saying a lot of really super positive things here. And it's easy for us to read the happy stuff, right? Like we get dozens of emails a week. It's been just honestly, Jonathan, right? Like the most amazing week of feedback we've ever gotten, and it just
got real
keeps
this
accelerating. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, we're like texting back and forth, like, oh my God, did you see that email that just came through? It's been the most incredible week. But it challenges us to read this, slightly negative stuff, and I would call this slightly, but Ken is right. I mean, I think one thing that I hope we have not been careless too much about is the 10-year mark. Whenever I try to say it, I say 10 to 15 years. And realistically for most people, 12 to 15 years is going to be a much more attainable goal. But, like Ken said, even a 20 to 25 year working career is way shorter than the standard, as he said. And, that would put most people decades ahead of where they were going to be anyway, right? I mean, most people, unfortunately, as we see from all these stats of people saving nothing for retirement and being, essentially broke in their 60s and 70s, like most people are going to wake up 40 years from now and be broke like they are today. That's the sad reality of the American consumer culture.
Yeah.
But if you listen to this podcast, if you read articles from all these, many financial independence sites, you're going to make those little changes that are going to add up to potentially millions of dollars over a 40 to 50 year investing life. And that is ultimately what we're going for here. Sure, it's wonderful to see people who've reached FI in 10 to 15 years. But even if you can, to Ken's point, 20 to 25 years is amazing, right? If you could tell me that every single one of our audience members is going to take action on a couple of things and reach financial independence in 25 years, I would take that in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even think about it. That's the biggest win possible, right? And of course, there will be people who reach it in 10 years, but more realistically, 12, 15, 17 years, something like that, that's not too shabby, right? So, Ken unquestionably brings up good points here. Does a higher income help? Of course it does. Of course, it absolutely does. I mean, is it easy to reach FI on a $20,000 a year income? No, I mean, it's not. So, are we maybe tailoring this to people, like Jonathan said, $100,000 a year sounds like when you just say that number, it sounds like an astronomical figure, but, two $50,000 a year spouses or, partners or whatever, that's not unrealistic. So, in my mind, that's what I'm thinking of rather than the highly paid, $100K a year single employees. So, it's just about perspective. And I think this is a very valid comment for sure.
And this is definitely, this is not the show for the high earners. Now, I'm not saying that we do have high earners that listen to this and love it. And we appreciate y'all. And we hope that you're getting value from this. But this show the focus has always been helping middle-class America build wealth one life hack at a time. That was it. And I think we have content for low-income America. I think you're going to get benefit from this show. I think this is for you as well. But, the idea has always been middle-class America is working their tails off and then making it to Social Security. And that's all that they have. That's it. And it could be so much more. The picture can be so much rosier. And how many people are getting, even in a perfect world, they're getting to debt free, and then they think that's it. That's all there is. Oh, we're debt free. We're done. Like, there is so much more, and we're just trying to next level this for you. We're just trying to unpack it and all these cool things that you can get, all the flexibility and the options that are available to you once you reach FI and as you're on the path to FI.
And yeah, I just wanted to read one really positive email just because this one just stuck out to me. When I read it, I instantly responded, we're reading that on the Friday Roundup. So I want to maintain my promise here. This is from Talus. And she said, first of all, this is great stuff. I stumbled upon the interview you did with Joshua on Radical Personal Finance and thought I'd give ChooseFI a listen. So glad I did. Soon after I got hooked on your show and I got my husband to listen to you as well. And the result has literally been life-changing. We're 28 and we live in Iowa, where the cost of living is already relatively low. However, we've always considered ourselves to be more frugal than most of our friends and neighbors, yet had no clear plan for our future. Since listening to this podcast, we've made some big changes to our investments and actually put together a plan on paper for our early retirement. The way you package the material makes it super easy to make changes right away. We appreciate the content and are looking forward to more. Our biggest concern is definitely walking away from the benefits of a corporate job. We hope to hear more about health insurance, side hustles, and other hacks for the self-employed. And she said, P.S. Brad, I just finished your travel rewards course, and we signed up for our first travel rewards card. So yeah, congrats, from the bottom of my heart for taking action. I mean, this is really remarkable. Jonathan, I'll throw it over to you. I know you love this one.
It was really inspiring. That's what I want to hear. I just have this vision. So, the Dave Ramsey people, you get to debt free and you call in and you do the shout. Like, we need to do a FI shout. And then, what if we're still doing this podcast 10 years from now? Can you imagine a world in which 10 years from now we're still doing this podcast? And forget about, what target we're saying. Some of our audience is going to hit FI within 10 years. Some of them are going to do it in 5. Some of them are going to do it at 6. Some will be at 10. I mean, it's coming. And what if we get to the point where they're able to do a live call and we're able to have that conversation? They said, I pulled the trigger. We're there. We're done. How much cooler is that? That is that is the coolest conversation ever, right?
Yeah, I mean, 10 years from now, we talked to Talus and her husband, and they started their path with us, and they'll be at FI. I mean, right? They're in a low cost of living area in Iowa, and are already more frugal, and now they have this plan for early retirement. I mean, geez, that's as good as it gets. So yeah, I mean, that's a cool thought, honestly, Jonathan, right? Like 10 years from now, people that listen to our first couple podcasts will be at FI. And that's just that'll
Talis,
happen.
I will build a section on the webpage for the case study on how you did it once you get there. I mean, we will just, and that would be cool too, right? Looking at different case studies of what people's financial situation was and what levers they chose, which levers they pulled to hit FI. You're going to get this really complete, rounded picture. Right now, there's probably about close to 100 high-level bloggers, and of those high-level bloggers, maybe I would say 20 to 30% of them have kind of unpacked the details of their finances and what levers they actually pulled to hit there. And but there's so many more people that are doing it. Those are just the ones that chose to document it. And what if we could give you a platform to share that information? And I think that's what we're about. We want to mainstream this thing. I mean, because it should be mainstream. There's no reason for it not to be. It's so powerful. So correction, and this is not a correction. This is a debate, and it's still ongoing. But Isaac has given me some feedback here, and he says Isaac thinks the Roth is the worst place to invest, and he references some articles by Go Curry Cracker. I love it. It's so deep and intense that I'm still having to study it. I'm not ready to make that announcement yet, but I got to say, Isaac, I've been looking at it. And mind blown. I don't even think Brad knows what I'm talking about right now. So we're going to have to go both back to the drawing board and take a look at this. But when we unpack it, we're going to do a battle cage match of the Roth versus the 401k versus the other investment taxable accounts. We're going to bring all the information that you sent us plus some other stuff. And we're going to try and unpack for you the power of these different buckets and where you can pull it. I thought I knew all the answers. Isaac, you blew my mind with that last email you sent me, so I saw that. So we'll get that out to our audience over the next couple months. We also had a comment from Jonah. Jonah says, because you mentioned dollar cost averaging a few times on the show, I wanted to send some data your way. Dollar cost averaging massively underperforms lump sum investing. The only reason you should be dollar cost averaging is if you are too leery of putting it all in at once, or if it makes you feel better about investing, go ahead and do it. But just know it looks like historically you're missing out on about 4% rate of returns. And we're going to do an interview with Jim Collins later on. And he made a great quote, which I'll go ahead and steal from him and use right now. And he said, one of the things that they think makes more of a difference, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. I thought that was really powerful. I definitely think the dollar cost averaging approach is a psychological one more than it is a math one. But, Jonah, thanks for sending that out there. I think I'll probably come to a conclusion over that over the next year or so.
And yeah, Jonah, I completely understand your point, and it's a great one. I've read a bunch of those articles. Certainly, I know the Mad Fientist has some. And, again, this comes down to math versus psychology. And I think, what we're trying to do here is not be perfect necessarily, because humans are flawed animals, right? We have these brains that trip us up, and I think getting over the psychology for most people is very, very difficult. Once you're there, then you optimize the heck out of things, right? Like, then without question, time in the market matters, and like you say, lump sum investing is based on the math, is without question, based on what I've seen, better than dollar cost averaging. It just is. But that said, many people are leery of taking all the money they've saved. Maybe they haven't invested, right? And they're just have money sitting in a savings account or something. And they're just leery of taking whatever it is, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and dumping it all in the stock market on one given day. And you mentioned that, the only reason, as you said, you should be dollar cost averaging is if you're too leery of putting in it all at once. And that is exactly it. But you can't discount how important that is for people, because most people, if given the choice of dumping it all in and then seeing the stock market, decline 10% over the next 3 months, or just not investing, they will pick not investing. And that's the reality of most people's situations. So if that means, putting in $1,000 a week for 20 weeks and that gets them in the market, well, that's sure as heck going to be a whole lot better 20 years from now than the person who just kept their money in savings for that 20 years. So I think we all can agree on that. So, I look at this as an exercise in psychology and overcoming, our brain's weaknesses, basically. And I know, like, I'm always the first one to say, like, I fall down on a lot of this stuff too. And I have these mental weaknesses where I still dollar cost average. And it's ridiculous. Like, on a percentage basis of, like, the new money that I just moved into Vanguard, like of the percentage of that money to my total amount invested in the stock market is immaterial at best. And so of course math would suggest just put it all in. It's completely immaterial, but I still dollar cost average.
Did you really?
I swear I did. And I did it over a shorter period than I normally would have. So at least I'm happy with myself in that regard.
That's
but
awesome.
But it's still hard. It's just hard. Yeah. And I know, my wife will listen to this and she is maybe more adamant about dollar cost averaging. It's just there's some weakness that we have when it comes to investing. And I'm cognizant of that. And I at least am taking steps to just get that extra money into the market, because I know it's sure as heck better over a 5-week period or a 10-week period than just keeping in savings. So, I consider that a success. Maybe Jonah would say, that's a half success, half failure, but I'm okay with that,
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right, so next we have our travel rewards segment where we pose a couple travel rewards questions from our community to Brad. And Ben says, love the podcast. Thanks for doing it. He says, I am planning out my reward strategy for the year, and I had a question regarding the Southwest Companion Pass. I have had a Southwest Preferred card for 5 years. I want to go for the Southwest Companion Pass as early as possible in 2018, so it lasts through 2018 and 2019. So here's my question. Should I open my first Southwest card in October 2017 so that most of the spending occurs in 2017, but that the 50 or 60,000 bonus mile points will hit my Southwest account in early 2018? Or is there some risk to this approach? And so I should wait to open the first Southwest card until January 2018?
Yeah, this is a great question. Really, really great question. I'll definitely unpack it in a second. I just wanted to, for people who are new to the podcast, check out our podcast episode on travel rewards. It was episode 9. So you can go to choosefi.com/009, or if you're on a, iTunes or a podcast player, just download episode 9. And we have a lot of resources there. We're really trying to build it out. We have a page with, our top credit cards. We have some suggestions on how to get started and all that kind of stuff. So definitely check that out. That's a really, really good resource. So, okay, Ben is talking about the Companion Pass specifically. And, this is one of the highest value items in all of travel rewards without question, because what it does is you get this Companion Pass where you get to bring your designated companion with you on any Southwest flight. That's whether you pay with points or with cash. You get to bring them for free. So, and the cool thing about how this works is once you've earned it, it's actually good through December 31st of the year following you've earned it. So, for instance, it's March of 2017 now. If you earn the Companion Pass now, it would be good through December 31st of 2018. So that's like 21 months essentially. So naturally, as you can imagine, the whole trick is earning it as early as possible in a calendar year. So it's good for that entire calendar year and the following calendar year. And the way to earn this is to actually earn 110,000 Southwest miles in one calendar year by one person. Okay, so the easiest way to do that is through these credit card sign-up bonuses, as Ben alluded to. So there are 3 Southwest cards that have either 50,000 point bonuses most of the year, or currently at the time we're recording this, the Southwest Business Card has a 60,000 mile bonus. So, and the other 2, the Premier and the Plus, have 50,000. So let's just say for argument's sake, you opened up the business card and one of the personal cards, and you hit the bonus requirements, which, there's spending requirements in a certain amount of time, you would automatically get the Companion Pass, because the 60,000 point bonus from the business card and the 50,000 point bonus from the personal card would be the 110,000. Boom, automatically triggers your Companion Pass, and it would be good through 12/31 of the following year. So now Ben's question is about timing. And this is crucial. He's asking, is there some risk to the approach of opening it in October and then putting some of the spending on it and then hopefully getting all the points to hit in January? And there is unquestionably risk to this. And I have heard many people, unfortunately, who timed it wrong or hit their minimum spending requirement in the month prior and, got the 50,000 point November or December of one calendar year and got their other bonus in January of the following calendar year. And, that's just not good enough because you need 110,000 points earned in one calendar year. So the whole thing is screwed up then if you do that. So unfortunately, and then, I've also then heard situations where Chase has, and, Chase is absolutely wonderful with these bonuses, but it's a little unpredictable when they're going to give you the actual Southwest miles, whether it's when you hit the minimum spending requirement or after the close of that statement. So, I have some very anecdotal, while most people say that the points hit after the statement close, it comes anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks after that statement close when you hit the minimum spending requirement. I actually heard this one anecdotal report in the last couple days about one of our community members who actually got the bonus points triggered and sent to their Southwest account before the statement close. And I'd never heard of that before. And that kind of scared me. So, Ben, that is definitely a concern. So, the worst case scenario would be you plotting this all out and then getting some of the points in December, and then the whole strategy is gone. So to me, the best possible time to do this, just to avoid any risk, is to open them in, let's say, early to mid-December. Apply for them. They'll show up a couple days later, maybe a week later. You do your spending and, then make certain that all the points hit in January of 2018. So you'll have it for essentially 24 months at that point, or 23 plus months, which is remarkable. So, that's definitely my advice is, please don't open it up in October. That's just too high of a risk in my opinion.
And by the way, Ben, I'm going to probably do the Southwest this December with you. So well-timed question. Question number 2, Jed says, I want to open some cards and get in on the points. I already have a lot of Delta miles, but nothing for hotels, and we're probably 2 years or so away from taking a vacation where we could use them. Now, I know a lot of the cards have annual fees. What's the best strategy for accumulating points before the fees eat away at your margin?
Yeah, this is a good question. It's something that obviously is important to people, and a long-term strategy is important as well. And as far as hotel points are really, really easy to use. For a lot of people, they like hotel points better than the airline miles because airline miles have there are some limits. Everybody hears the horror stories of blackout dates, right? And what in most scenarios, that's just finite number of award seats available at like the quote saver level. So, we look at that as many people who aren't really aware of the rules look at that as a blackout and they think it's a scam, and I think that's just misinformation, honestly. But it, regardless, it's still a limitation. So airline miles are a little more difficult than hotel points, certainly, because most of the major hotel chains have a rule where if there's any standard rooms available to pay for, with a regular cash booking, you can use your points to book that room. Okay. So most hotels, except for, the most popular hotels, most hotels are not at full occupancy every single night. They're just not. So that opens up a whole lot more availability to use hotel points. So, that's kind of like definitely a low-hanging fruit of the travel rewards world is hotel points. Also Southwest, actually, since we just talked about that. Southwest does not have any of those award limitations either. It's just like a simple function of their cash price is how many points it costs. So, for families, especially for larger families who need to book 3, 4, 5 award seats, Southwest is a really easy way to go about this. So, but anyway, getting back to hotels is, I especially like Hyatt hotels and Starwood hotels because I find their award charts to be very, very reasonable. I know with Hyatt, I often find Hyatt hotels in category 1 and category 2, which are only 5,000 points and 8,000 points respectively. I find those readily available in cities that I want to visit, and 5,000 points, that a 50,000 point bonus goes a whole heck of a long way, right? You get 10 nights in a category 1 Hyatt, and those can be really nice hotels. Certainly like the Hyatt Place and the Hyatt Houses of the world. Free breakfast, that kind of thing. So we definitely focus on Hyatt, and the easiest way to get Hyatt points is through Chase Ultimate Rewards. So as we've discussed previously, there are cards like the Sapphire Reserve, the Sapphire Preferred, the Ink Business Preferred, and you can transfer those points from Chase to your Hyatt account. Okay, so from that point on, they become Hyatt points, and they are no longer related to your credit card. Now, it is not in any way, shape, or form our place to tell you whether to close a credit card or do any of that stuff. That's not what we're here to do. But obviously, if Jed here is worried about annual fees, he has to make a decision, how much value he's getting out of that card. But if he so chose, he could transfer those points out, and they become Hyatt points. And again, they are not related to the credit card any longer. So, that is probably a pretty good long-term strategy for Hyatt points, certainly. And with Starwood, there are a lot of very easy ways to rack up Starwood points. There are actually right now through April 5th, 2017, there's an all-time high bonus on the Starwood Amex business and personal cards. It's a 35,000 point bonus when you hit all the minimum spending requirements. And that's the highest bonus I've ever seen in that card. And while 35,000 points does not sound like a massive amount, the Starwood award chart is just so fantastic. I mean, you can get category 1 and 2 hotels on the weekends. They have lower prices. It's like 2,000 and 3,000 points per night, if memory serves.
Wow.
And yeah, which is amazing, right? So, I mean, you can get
several weeks at the hotel.
Yeah, you can get a couple weeks at a category 1 hotel, which is amazing from one bonus. And also, right, because Starwood and Marriott are now merged, you can actually take Marriott points and transfer them to become Starwood points. Okay, Marriott points are worth a whole lot less than Starwood points, so it's actually 3 Marriott points for 1 Starwood, which doesn't sound too fantastic, of course, but in my opinion, I'd rather have 30,000 Starwood points than 90,000 Marriott points. So, that's another nice, easy way. There are a bunch of Marriott cards. Like I said, there's a bunch of Starwood cards. So, again, once those points are sent to your Marriott or Starwood account every month automatically from the credit card, they're not related to that credit card anymore. So those are points in your Starwood account at that point. So, then it becomes any account activity, similar with Hyatt, is any account activity whatsoever resets the expiration clock on all those points. So you can keep those points going almost indefinitely just by any little bit of activity, even, triggering 1,000 points from Chase Ultimate Rewards, which is the lowest amount you can, that would reset the clock on all of your Hyatt points. Or making one charge on your Starwood card for $2, right? Those 2 points would get sent over to Starwood, and it would reset the expiration clock on all those points. So, there are lots of very easy ways to keep points going. So, yeah, I hope, Jed, that gives you a pretty good overview of what to do with your points.
Those are great answers, Brad. I definitely think that'll be something that'll be usable. And then also, so 2 things to that. 1, go check out our travel rewards page. And then on that, if you want, there is a free Excel file that you can get access to. And that will actually give you a list of all the transfer partners that we talk about, how to sign up for their accounts individually, which are all free, and the Excel file is free. But once you do that, you can set up accounts for each one of those. So if you need to take advantage of some of those advanced transfer techniques, you should be able to do that. So, okay. Well, that's basically comes to the end of today's segment. Where are we going? What's going to be going on with ChooseFI here coming up? Well, this upcoming Monday, we got Mad Fientist on. This is going to be episode 17. And it was worth the wait. It is fantastic. The podcast that we're going to release on Monday unpacks the story of the Mad Fientist. It really is an origin story. It is, his mentality, his mindset, kind of what drove him to create the content that he drove, what he struggles with, what he's good at. It really is behind the scenes look at, his life over the last, 5, 6, 7 years. And he has had such an influence on our community, the fire community, that it is a podcast that we were desperate to do. And I think it came out really well. I know Brad was just as excited about it as I am. And I hope y'all enjoy it, because I don't think that y'all will have seen anything quite like that out in the podcast arena. Also on the ChooseFI, I told you about the homepage. Go check it out, ChooseFI.com right now. It's been a completely redesigned homepage. When we initially started, wanted everybody to hear the ChooseFI story, why you needed to take that first step. You know us now, right? So we want to get you deeper into our content and let you see all the cool things that are going on. So that homepage represents that. I'd love your feedback on that. So feedback at ChooseFI.com. If tested, if something's not working, or if you have an idea for how to make it better, I love your feedback. And on the feedback, Swain Stash, which by the way is a great handle. He follows us on Twitter and he has a podcast, Crucible Podcast, and it has nothing to do with Fi. It's a video game podcast. But he suggested that we open a Slack forum. So that is an app that you can use to have a conversation with your community while the podcast is rolling out. That's some next level big league stuff. And Brad and I are pretty excited about the idea. We want to make this a community driven show. We visualize a 2 to 3 year future in which this is a full-time thing for us. And we're because we love spending time with you guys talking about this content. I mean, you hear it in our voice. We love it. And I think we're going to be exploring ideas for how we can get you even more involved than you are now. This isn't going anywhere. ChooseFI is going to be here in 2018. And so we want to get you involved, and we want to get you involved early. So we're starting to spend more time on our Facebook page. That's a great place for you to actually go and leave your feedback on an episode. I mean, as y'all have started to figure out, if you leave us a comment, you leave us anything we can use, we jump on it. I mean, we love your input. So you're like, wow, what are the odds they actually mention my comment? Well, it's pretty darn good because we love your input. On that same, if you have an idea for what next level stuff that we can do to make this community better, let us know. We're interested in that feedback right now. So anyways, all your thoughts, your ideas, your comments, email it to us at feedback@choosefi.com. If you want to get on our email list, you can go to choosefi.com/subscribe. Or if you're listening to this on your podcast device and you don't have access to, getting on the internet at the moment, you can text ChooseFI to 44222. Just text ChooseFI to 44222. And we look forward to growing together. And we're just having a lot of fun with this as we continue to go down the road less traveled. Brad, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just to echo what Jonathan said, we are loving this. This is really the most exciting project I've ever been involved in. And, we think about this all day, every day. We absolutely love it. And, you guys are the lifeblood of ChooseFI. And please, keep the questions, the comments, the criticisms, just keep them coming. We love it. And, we just cannot do this without you. So another thing I would ask is if you have, the personal finance and the Fi blogosphere, if you will, it's humongous. And, we don't know everybody by any means. We don't have the time or expertise to really research hundreds of blogs, but we want your input. If there's someone who's, a cutting edge thinker or just doing something different, or somebody who has a great story, just shoot us a real super quick email at feedback@choosefi.com and just let us know. Send us the article that you think is really great, and we can get that person on the podcast and talk through that article. That's what we're all about here is, not having these guests come on and just do like the typical meet and greet and, let's hear 2 minutes of your story and, the typical stuff. We want to unpack on a deep level what people are doing that's different and really a game changer. So, you can help us become acquainted with these people, and we can get them on and have them explain their story to our entire audience and in turn the whole Fi community. So that is absolutely crucial to us. And, just again, to the iTunes reviews, that is really the biggest thing you can do to help us is just take 30 seconds, go to iTunes and just leave us, hopefully a 5-star rating and just a quick 1 or 2 line review. It really means the world to us. So yeah, I mean, that's my big ask for the audience is, just keep the feedback coming. And if you do have a couple minutes, just leave us a quick review.
You've been listening to ChooseFI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.